Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and welcome to Title Update 2's Summer Festival Flame Fete. And with that, of course, we have the Arch-Tempered Uth Duna. So we're going to be taking a look at some of those new details, advice that I can give you, and kind of a little review. If you want to go against Arch-Tempered Uth Duna, all you need to do is come to the event quest, These Roots Run Deep. Obviously, you'll need to be Hunter rank 50 plus, but I'm sure we all are. And you'll find as you load in that it starts in Area 17 during a time of inclemency every single time. If you're wondering about the free challenge quest, the time restricted, probably specifically slay one that's coming, that will be launching next week. So this is the time to face her, get the new armor set, get all the new rewards or whatever, and kind of get comfortable with this new version so that you're confident and ready for that time challenge. A quick opinion or overview of the new fight though is that the pace is up. While you do have various new attacks and a lot of new wave stuff, the general pace is faster and that has a huge impact on this slower Leviathan fight. She's very hulking and slow and doesn't have many long combos. In this Arch-Tempered version, every attack seems to have a new follow-up or chains into something else. Whether she's going for the big chest slams or the full-on flying belly flops, these are also super destructive because obviously the damage is up. With her heavier nature and these longer combos, a lot of extra waves are being created, coming out in different ways. These waves will cause water blight and buffet you, which will give her a chance to follow up with an attack that you might actually get hit by, or you end up dealing with the attack and taking the wave, ultimately getting water blight and now having stamina problems. One of the main aspects of this is the mix-ups, where she starts to fake things out with delays, like she'll do a roar or a rear up or do a little slide and then do the real follow-up, often say like a chest slam or something. And so that's the kind of thing that was catching me out initially. Since this is still Uth Duna though, there is still slower attacks and movesets here, so you can indeed get back-to-back counters off, or using hyper armor, offsets and that kind of thing is actually reliable. Whereas say against Serigios and especially Legaicrus and certain attacks, that type of thing would get you killed by ticking damage. Thankfully here, not so much. I have found this easier than I found Arch-Tempered Ray, and to be honest that was expected. Uth Duna is the first Apex you face and so the easiest. And I do think people are going to struggle with this one a lot more in a group compared to solo. This is due to the fact that she's a big target and she has that unfortunate hip check style of attacks. So she does an attack and maybe you deal with it and dodge it, but she turns and her hip hits you or whatever, and that deals damage. In multiplayer, when you're not the target, you might still get hit by a wave that came your way anyway, or one of her hip checks and hitboxes just collides with you despite it not being a proper attack. Based on what I'm seeing on Reddit and social media in general, that seems to be the vibe right now. So if you're struggling with her, go face her on your own, you might have an easier time. But hopefully the tips today help you out. Let's talk about her new moveset then. First up, we have a completely new attack. The barrel roll, as Josh is calling it. You might just see it as a back slam and then she rolls back to right herself. But ultimately, this comes out after a little roar where she turns sideways and then does it. I must admit that the tell on this catches me out because the roar, I think, is just a roar. So I tried to counter that. Then I'm stuck in my recovery animation for the slam that's coming. It deals massive damage and obviously waves, so it's a pretty dangerous one. There's also the tail slam from behind, which has a nice hefty slam to it and also generates waves. I quite like this one to bait it out because it's kind of one attack, easy to counter or perfect evade or whatever, and then punish because it's got decent recovery animation. You're going to see that she has a bit more movement here. There's this kind of charging triple bounce that's used to reposition you. This is because even if you deal with the charge attack itself, get out of the way or counter it, she then slides and turns around, having created a bunch of waves that push you towards wherever she went. Then she can follow up with something like a chest slam to punish you in your new awkward position. Of course, there's the familiar swipes, but she actually has a double swipe combo now that comes out pretty quick and drags her forward. Like I've been saying, a lot of her attacks are about hitbox and dragging that hitbox into you. This double swipe does exactly that. And as I've been saying, a lot of attacks are going to generate a lot of waves. So as she dashes, there'll be like line waves that come out. Generally, she's just more aggressive and faster in her nature. The combos are faster and longer. There's less long delays between them. She's still a slow and heavy creature with horrifying damage, and even more so in this case. and definitely more invasive wave mechanics because she's generating more, so you've got more threat of water blight. The thing that I find difficult to deal with is the telegraphs of the attacks, whether she's roaring, rearing up, or doing a side slide before doing the real attack. That's what catches me out the most and is what I try to understand fast. Those are definite changes, but there are some others that seem to be the case. Like, once you remove the veil, she does feel like she's just a lot more agile and fast, but that's possibly just her more aggressive nature. But she does seem to gap close a lot more aggressive, whether that's in greater distances with belly flops or those charges in general. Something Josh was discussing with me is that it feels like the waves seem to move you further. Maybe they last longer or go faster, but it's very feely, that one. Something that's gonna happen though is the fact that in this specific event quest that we're all doing, we start the fight in Area 17, which is where she can do her super, where she goes out of bounds and swims around and starts slamming waves at you. These can come at you from a massive distance, and obviously the wedge beetles are going to be great for getting you up and over waves to avoid that, or her various attacks as a general tip. But you'll see that super a lot more in this case, because it's not you might end up in Area 17, you're starting there. Now, of course, I have some tips for you, and I hope this helps you out. Just to get the obvious out of the way, we have her hit zones and weaknesses. You can break her head and tail, but also her forelegs. It's important to know. And obviously, you're going to want to break off that veil as soon as possible. In terms of weaknesses, your best locations are going to be the forelegs and head, and thunder is of course her biggest weakness in terms of elements. So I'm always bringing at least a little bit of that for these hunts. One of my favorite tips for Uth Duna is flash pods. Even though she's a ground enemy, you can actually get some aerial interruptions, as she's doing those belly flops, the ones that are slow with hang time rather than the chest slams. A flash pod doing that actually interrupts the attack and brings her down like she's a flyer. To do this, I just see, oh, there's her first belly flop. I know there's a second one going to come out in combo, so I get my flash pod ready for that second one and interrupt it. Just be careful because she will recover from this pretty quick. It's not like a true knockdown, but it will interrupt her and allow you to get some attacks off. She will immediately try to do an RNG attack on the ground though. This could be, say, the barrel roll, the new attack, or say a chest slam like I see. There's not a huge window for DPS, but her blindness will provide some after that. As I said, the fight starts in Area 17 every time. Here you've got the wedge beetles to get over the waves and different attacks, letting you reposition wherever necessary, and whenever she does that super, they're going to be an important thing to go up to and dodge with. Just be careful you're not silly and go into the wave like I do here. There's a ton of wedge beetles around, just use ones that get you up and hang up there when you need to. Area 15 is her next natural location. Once you deal enough damage and time passes, she just goes to the next area. In Area 15, you have that waterfall rock drop, which does immense damage, pushes you and her to the edge, and can be a great knockdown and DPS window. Letting her naturally go here is a good idea just because of that damage of the boulder drop, and it's great because when she goes down there herself, she kind of just sits next to the waterfall, so it gives you an easy pull. The next natural area, she'll go down past Area 13 to Area 12. So if you're fast enough in this case, you can chase alongside her, reach the water boulder drop there in Area 13 and pull it down for big damage and a DPS window with a knockdown. It's also a good area to fight because it's not massive. But if you do go to Area 12, letting her go further on, you will find other monsters there like Mizu in a consistent manner in this quest. There's also another boulder drop there in the center of that area for even more damage. However, you can actually force her to Area 14 via Area 17 with a lure pod or Area 12 with a lure pod. Here you'll find there's no water, so you don't have to deal with waves, which is going to be amazing. But there's also the double ruins drops here, so if you place a barrel bomb next to these and blow them up, they'll drop like a boulder drop, 2 DPS windows in a small area. Plus, if you've got explosives like a gunlance, you can pull them down without needing a barrel bomb. Another big tip is the new vouchers we have for the meals, the flamefete barbecue meal. This gives you moxie meal as a survival thing, but the main thing here is swimmer meal and a little bit of balanced meal too. Swimmer meal increases your attack when wet. You start this hunt with it being inclemency and raining, so you're going to be wet, but then you're fighting water areas the whole time pretty much anyway. So it's a big damage bonus. Balanced meal prevents you getting knocked on your butt, so that's going to really help with waves and generally being interrupted. So I think this is going to be an obvious choice for specifically this quest. Obviously, when you're fighting her, you've got to get through that veil. Like I said, I like to go to the back and bait out the tail slam attacks because they're very easy to evade or counter and then get great damage on because big recovery frames. This is great veil DPS. Once you get that off, you can get into the proper DPS and get to the scars and wounds and so on. Speaking of which, she's technically a tempered monster, so she has guaranteed scar locations for tempered wounds. I found that she has one on her left forearm, She has one on the left side of her head. She has one on her tail, but more towards the butt, to be honest, and one at the back right leg. Some monsters, it's just not worth it to get to those tempered wounds, but with Uth Duna, I found it actually quite reliable to go for all of them. So my advice is to work your way around her, going for these targets, getting them open, and controlling the fight with some focus strikes. But obviously, you want to be hitting her head and her forearms the most. Now a quick talk about the new stuff with equipment. She has new talismans and armor. Of course, we have the Gamma set, and as expected, we got Peak Performance and Tool Specialist, Earplugs, Quick Sheath, and Agitator, so not amazing skill list here, but there is one piece of this that will be quite important. Here are the slots, if you are wondering. Pretty decent decoration slots on the helm, but terrible none on the chest and gloves. Pretty amazing decoration slots on the waist, but the prime piece here is going to be the legs. As you can see, we got 311, which is pretty great, and you got Quick Sheath level 3, 1 level of Agitator. So obviously Longsword is going to be pretty interested in this piece. But it gets more interesting when we look at the set bonus. So we have Uth Duna's cover. This is the same one that normal Uth Duna usually has, the Protective Veil, and it isn't good. Increases your defense when using specialized tool, so you get big defenses when you're using your mantle. It's not like a bad thing to have, but it's not something you're going to be forcing into sets. It's not going to increase DPS. The other part that's interesting, it's Guts Tenacity. This is the same thing you'll find on the Ray set in his Arch-Tempered version. So it turns out that wasn't Ray's special bonus. It's Arch-Tempered, probably Apex related. So the idea with this one is you get boosted attack but lower defense, you survive a lethal hit, after that you lose the bonus attack, but now you get bonus defense and resistances. For most of us, it's just bonus attack, it's 5% of the weapon's base raw, so it's obviously very good, and you only need 3 pieces of Arch-Tempered. This is a big deal because it means those of us that were using 3 Arch-Tempered pieces could now heavily consider legs, especially Longsword, so it should have some impact on that meta. Overall, I do think the set is a bit disappointing in terms of the skills it has, but it is kind of what we're expecting based on how we saw the basic Ray set and what happened with the Gamma set. At very least, we have the legs, which are going to be impactful. But I told you that there is actually a new talisman option. Specifically, there's 2 upgrades that now exist in this update. As you can see, first up we have the Peak Performance Talisman. We can now get to level 3 on that, which makes complete sense. As you can see, it requires Uth Duna parts and 3 of the Gamma tickets. The other one is of course the Maintenance Charm. This now gets you to level 4 Tool Specialist and also requires 3 of those Gamma certificates. I'm not exactly expecting anyone to go crazy over these, but they're important to be acknowledged. And again, if you like either of these skills, you can now get more of them on just your talisman slot. But yeah, that's my overview of the new stuff with Arch-Tempered Uth Duna. My opinion on this is that it's definitely going to be one of the easier Arch-Tempered fights. But I do think what they've done is pretty cool. Where they didn't make a lot of mechanical changes and a lot of new moves for Arch-Tempered Ray Dao, it was mainly just splicing movesets together and creating new combos. There are obviously new moves here, but the biggest thing here is the pace and the wave mechanic being a lot more aggressive and invasive. She moves around a lot more. She feels quicker when deveiled. More of her attacks generate waves. And obviously the damage is devastating with the chest slams, belly flops, and the back slam in particular. Where I would describe original Uth Duna as too slow and a bit boring for me, least favorite of the apexes, this feels like the fight we were supposed to get with a much more interesting pace and threat to it. If you guys have any more information or advice you could help out others with, then let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.